Welcome back to the second episode of my Source Filmmaker Beginner's Guide series. This video will cover model downloading, spawning of models, lights, and go more in-depth on camera uses, as well as examples of using a secondary viewport. Let's start with downloading models from the workshop. Open up Steam and go to Community, then Workshop. Go to the next page to find the Source Filmmaker workshop and open it. Click on Most Popular Items and browse to your heart's content for new maps, models, materials, filters, particles, and more. There are tons of cool creations and ports for you to download here, despite the fact that half of it is Five Nights at Freddy's shit. You can use the search bar on the top to look for specific models or characters you might think the SFM workshop has. There are also filters on the right side to help sort the workshop add-ons into categories. If you want to find more quality content, change the overtime period from 1 week to all time. For this video, I will be downloading and using this Godzilla model. You can download any models you want, but I highly suggest you do your model downloading in bursts rather than all at once. You'll see what I mean soon. Hit the green plus button on the bottom of the add-ons picture, or the green subscribe button if you're in the add-ons page. When SFM is opened and you're at the session loadout screen, look to the center and you will see Open Recent right next to the file destination of your most recent session. Click Open Recent, or if the session you made in the last video isn't your recent one, click the arrow drop-down and find the session you made for this video series. SFM will take longer to load this time, as it's fetching the add-on info from the workshop item we just downloaded. Be patient and wait for it to load. Try not to click anything, as doing so will make SFM freak out and on some occasions crash. This is why it's recommended you download add-ons in small bursts, because when you have too many add-ons to download at once, SFM takes an absurd amount of time to load them and can crash while downloading it all. Once the add-on download screen pops up, click OK and Yes to all if SFM prompts you to replace materials. Do this until all add-ons have been successfully downloaded. Now that we're back in our previous session, let's go straight into model spawning. Look to the top left corner and click the big plus sign tab. Then create animation set for new model. This is the model selection menu. It works the same as the map selection screen, except this time it actually has a model preview screen. You can browse all models you have by scrolling up and down, or use the search bar at the bottom to find just what you're looking for. Type in the name of the model you just downloaded and wait for SFM to find it. It only takes this time to dig through all the models you have once, so thank fuck for that. Once you have your model, double click it to spawn into the map and voila! You now have a model in your workspace. Move the camera around to get a good look at your model if you want. A tip I forgot to mention in last video's tutorial was how to adjust the camera's movement speed. Just like any FPS, holding shift while working the camera will make it move faster, and control will make it move slower. Before we spawn lights, we need to go more in depth on the render settings screen I touched upon last episode. Mainly the ambient occlusion part we disabled. Ambient occlusion is basically a form of shadows and shading most 3D programs use to enhance realism in lighting. For example, look at your model without ambient occlusion. Now look at it with ambient occlusion. That's a huge difference in shading and overall quality. Ambient occlusion will allow SFM to show more detail in the model and is absolutely required for all posters and animations. Sadly, not all models will have ambient occlusion. There are ways to fix this, but that's advanced work we'll cover later. If you notice, moving the camera when ambient occlusion is enabled can be pretty laggy. This is why we keep it off when working our scene, and only turn it on when we're setting up for a render or lighting the scene. Speaking of lights, let's quickly spawn one, just so you know where they are. Similar to how we spawned the model, we will go to the plus tab in the top left corner, and click Create Animation Set for new light. Lights, as well as models, will always spawn from the perspective of camera 1. We'll get into lighting in another video, but I just wanted to show you where it was in case you wanted to try to get some lighting practice in on your model before we can actually get to it. Experimentation is highly recommended for SFM. That's how I taught myself after all. One last thing before the end of the episode is the uses of the work camera and having a second viewport. Let's say, for example, you already have the perfect camera position in mind for your animation or poster. You set up your camera how you like it, but don't want to move it at all to actually work on the scene. This is what the work camera is for, as it acts separately from camera 1. You can move the camera around to work on your scene freely while your default camera stays stationary. Click the camera tab in the bottom right corner to switch the views of both cameras, or use a secondary viewport for more convenience. To do this, go to the top of the workspace and click on Windows and Secondary Viewport. This secondary window will pop up as a black screen. Move it to where you want on the workspace, either as a second window, or merge it with your workspace like so. You can even put it to your second monitor if you have one. When you have the window positioned where you want it, double-click the camera tab on the second window you just created. This will put the viewport of the second window the same as the regular viewport, allowing you to work on the scene with the work camera and see what the result is on your main camera all at the same time. That's all for today's video. Join us in the next video as we learn about posing of models, model rigs, scene composition, and more. Until then, stay educated.